Pokémon Sword and Shield are the latest generation of Game Freak's mainline Pokémon games, and mark the 8th generation of Pokémon. After 23 years of dreaming, players are finally able to experience their Pokémon journey on a home console. Sword and Shield invite players to explore the UK-inspired Galar region and befriend numerous weird and wonderful Pokémon along the way. Together with their Pokémon, players will compete in the annual Galar Gym Challenge, repeatedly mashing the A button through seemingly endless boxes of unvoiced dialogue and repetitive turn-based combat until they have inevitably claimed all 8 of Galar's gym badges and the title of Pokémon Champion. In contrast to Pokémon Sword and Shield's simplistic gameplay, this video will analyze the game's complex relation to the topics of violence and gender and sexuality. The story and setting of Pokémon Sword and Shield work to disassociate the game from its violent premise by framing Pokémon battles as a consensual spectator sport. Despite being able to summarize Pokémon games as competitive monster dogfighting, Pokémon is not considered a violent game, receiving the rating of PG or equivalent worldwide. One way that Game Freak adulterates its violent themes is through the use of narrative framing, establishing Pokémon battles as a consensual competitive sport that is not only natural for Pokémon, but also fun for them and critical to their development. Pokémon Sword and Shield waste no time corroborating this dynamic, opening with a shot of a Pokémon battle inside of a roaring stadium, and drawing parallels between the English's obsession with football and Galar's gym battles. As stated in Thompson and Hanninger's 2001 Violence and E-rated games, the lines around what is and isn't considered violence is blurred around sport where physical contact is not intended to cause injury. Pokémon Sword and Shield never make reference to Pokémon being harmed, with Pokémon simply fainting when defeated in battle. By framing Pokémon battles as a competitive sport that is entered voluntarily by trainers and their Pokémon, in addition to carefully circumnavigating any sort of reference to physical violence, Pokémon Sword and Shield managed to cultivate only mild themes of violence in a game that is conceptually quite the opposite. Pokémon Sword and Shield introduced new additions to the gameplay formula that work to shift the spotlight away from violence and instead reinforce themes of companionship and adventure. The Wild Area is Sword and Shield's most distinctive new gameplay feature, introducing a huge area where players may encounter Pokémon roaming the overworld, a first for the mainline series. By allowing players to forge their own paths, see Pokémon interacting with the world, and engage with the ones they find appealing, Sword and Shield simultaneously bolster themes of exploration and human Pokémon relationships. Unlike previous games in the series, Pokémon are no longer random obstacles to be defeated, but rather tangible creatures to be interacted with. In addition to the Wild Area, Sword and Shield also introduces Pokémon Camp, a new way to train and bond with your Pokémon. Setting up camp, playing with, and cooking for your Pokémon not only gives them experience points, but also replenishes their hit points, cures status ailments, and increases their friendliness towards you. By incentivizing non-violent relationships with Pokémon, Sword and Shield detracts from its violent themes by emphasizing those of adventure and companionship. Pokémon Sword and Shield deliberately avoids recognizing gender and sexuality, which work to provide a safe space for queer gamers without making a political statement that may affect the game's wide audience. Pokémon Sword and Shield do not expressly include any sort of queer representation. However, there is nothing overtly heteronormative about the game's play or narrative. Rather than asking for the player's pronouns, like in previous iterations, Sword and Shield simply asks the player to choose an avatar, and then refer to them using their desired name along with gender-neutral pronouns. Through omitting the topic of gender and sexuality, play presents the same placable story for all players, regardless of how they identify. By giving players the freedom to express themselves how they choose, and experience their own unique Pokémon journey free from discrimination, Sword and Shield allow for queer gamers to play queer by projecting their own identities into their play. Though lacking in queer representation, Sword and Shield provide a chance for queer gamers to enjoy play without a reminder of the real-world complexities of gender and sexuality, which is sometimes more than enough to foster a queer-friendly environment. The gender variance amongst Pokémon in Sword and Shield reinforces heteronormative stereotypes and promotes a binary perspective on gender. Since Generation 4, some Pokémon possess different in-game models based on their gender, akin to real-world sexual dimorphism. This alone is indicative of Pokémon Sword and Shield's roots in heteronormative game design. However, some of these designs mimic traits that reinforce binary gender stereotypes of masculinity and femininity. Pokémon such as Pikachu, Jellicent, and the Generation 8 exclusive Indeedee are indicative of sexist design patterns. Pokemon designs are fantastical in essence, and though many Pokemon possess real-world inspirations, Pokemon designs mimicking societal standards diminish Pokemon's stance of political neutrality. It can be concluded that Pokemon's gender variance is rooted in heteronormative game design that ultimately advocates a binary gender perspective. Pokémon Sword and Shield are products of meticulous design choices, carefully weaving a perfectly palatable game that avoids making bold statements upon the topics of violence or gender and sexuality in order to grip the widest audience possible. After all, in the wise words of Game Freak, gotta catch 'em all, right, gamers?